So, I don't even know if I'm going to post this video or not. For this video, I thought it would be fun to do a little story time. If you hear any background noise, I apologize. I'm out in my car because I do not feel comfortable talking about this in my apartment. Maybe that's just me being paranoid. And it is currently 85 degrees outside, so it is really hot. I really don't know where to start. So this is the story about how I once lived in a haunted house, and it got to the point that my friends were scared to come over to my house and like sleep over and stuff. They didn't want to come over and they were scared. So throughout this video, I'll probably post pictures just in reference to the house and like stuff like that, just some visuals for the story. I grew up in this house, and it's a house in the city, and funny enough, it is right around a cemetery. I don't know if I'm gonna say what cemetery it is, or maybe I'll just find it on maps and kind of circle around where I used to live. Was a kid moving into the house, and I was there up until like my teen years. So yeah, I was in that house for a minute. I also had various rooms in the house. So when I was younger, I had a bigger room in the basement, and then once I became a teenager, I moved to the upstairs floor, which was like the top floor, and there was room there. And in that room is where I started noticing weird things going on. What kind of weird things, you might be asking? Well, so it started off with hearing footsteps above me, and we were on the top floor. Above me would have been the attic. There was like a pull system that you had to like pull down the ladder and then go up the ladder, and that's how you go up to the attic. And I was the only kid in the house as well. So there weren't kids like sneaking up there or whatnot. My home consisted of mostly older people, so they weren't going to be climbing up ladders and all of this and that in the middle of the night with no help. Just hearing footsteps up there in the attic and shuffling and the creaking of like the wood on, as if somebody was walking. When I was younger, it happened a lot, and I remember going to like my family and telling them I hear somebody upstairs in the attic, and they'd be like, no, no, nobody's up there, blah, 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 blah. They think it's just kids and imaginations, fine. After that, you would still hear footsteps up in the attic, but alongside that, now you would hear somebody going up and down the stairs. So the stairs would always creak when you go up and down them. So in the middle of the night, I would just hear the stairs creaking, as if somebody was going up and down the stairs. When I first moved into that room, I would have the door open and just kind of like, hang out there. But once the stairs started creaking in the middle of the night, and you're laying in bed and you hear somebody coming up the stairs, but nobody's there, just kind of made me close the door. And yeah, I just kind of stopped having my door open. I had friends coming over at this point and younger, and again, there wasn't really any issues up at this point with them spending the night. Sometimes they would hear the footsteps upstairs in the attic and be like, is anybody up there? And I'd be like, no. I would also have some family members come up to me and ask me if I was going up and down the stairs in the middle of the night, and I would tell them no, but that I'd also hear it as well, and we would just brush it off, I guess. Everything that was happening was, oh, there's got to be some kind of logical explanation. Like, what can you do, After that, but for sure at this point, everyone had become aware that we were hearing things. I come from a very Hispanic and religious family, so they're not going to openly admit, like, yeah, I hear something and there's a ghost or whatever. Like, they're not like that. So that was happening for, I would say, a few years before things got really noticeable. When I had started closing my door, this is going to sound weird, but I started getting a really weird feeling about my closet. I know it's really weird, But I just got this really weird feeling about my closet. And like every time my closet doors were open, and they were like the shutter kind, every time they were open, I would just get this really weird, eerie feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but I would say that it was definitely most prominent or most noticeable or harder to ignore at night when I was sleeping. And I remember being like a preteen, teenager, whatever, and kind of just like waking up and feeling like something was watching me or something was around me. And I would get up, like in the middle of the night, I would get up and just kind of look around, and I would have my closet doors open, and again, just this weird feeling that something was over there and just watching me sleep. It got to the point where I started closing those doors, and I just had those doors closed 24 hours. You know what I mean? Like, I just had them closed all the time. The only time I would open them was just to get stuff out of my closet, and then I would just open it back up again. And every time I would open it, again, just this weird, eerie feeling, like the hairs on my arms were standing up, goosebumps, heaviness, definitely like a heaviness in the air. And yeah, it was weird. Yeah. Um, at this time, I was a little older, still a teenager. So we're probably like 8th grade now, whatever age you are in 8th grade. My friends were coming over a lot more often. We were having more sleepovers, stuff like that. I remember one particular incident. It was one of my good friends at the time who had come over. She was sleeping over, and this was back in the day when there was no smartphones. And she had a phone that kind of flipped up and flipped down. I don't know what phone it was, but if you're my age or older, you know what I'm talking about. We had fallen asleep, and her phone, I guess at some point in the middle of the night, had started taking pictures. And mind you, again, this was not a smartphone, it was not a touch screen. You had to flip it open. When we woke up, she saw the phone had taken like over 100 pictures or something like that. And we went through all of the pictures because we kind of had already been experiencing some weird things. And we looked through each one by one. And at some point, like in the middle of the pictures, there was one picture that was just black and then had a white orb, like a giant white orb, and then like a little tiny one. And then after that, it was just blank, 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 blank. It was weird. Along with that experience came more pictures. I don't have any of the pictures now. I know you're screaming at me, and you're like, "How could I believe you? How could I believe this?" Blah 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 blah. I don't know. Okay, like over the years, you know, you just lose files. Pictures don't work anymore. They know what I mean? Like, I just don't have the pictures, guys. Like, I lost them. I don't know what happened to them. And the friends that have experienced this with me, I no longer talk to. I no longer speak to them. So I'm not gonna, like, you know what I mean? You're just gonna have to take my word for it. But this happened, and back to the story. We started getting more pictures. I had first started getting into YouTube and stuff like that. This was the era when Shane Dawson was like top YouTube content. I remember that. I had just gotten a camera, so I was experimenting and like I wanted to be a YouTuber, whatever. So I would just take pictures randomly in my room. I would take pictures of random stuff in my room, and that would include the closet. There was a picture I took at some point during that era where I had gotten like the shape of a little boy in the closet. It was like as if he was crouching and kneeling and like hugging his knees, and it was like his hand or like his elbow was coming out of the closet. It was a weird picture, and the lighting was showing. So the lighting of the picture was going this way, right? And the shadow was coming out of the closet going towards the light. Makes no sense. Once we had gotten those two pictures specifically, and by we, I mean me and my friends, because we were the only ones that were like open about, yeah, this is happening at your house. Once those two pictures were taken, we were dead set on, yeah, there's something in the house, there's something there. And I wasn't in the best headspace. I was in a very vulnerable place. I just kind of accepted that whatever was there was there. And once I did, more things started happening. One of the major incidents that happened that definitely scared off my friend was this one night we were having a sleepover. It was the middle of the night. She was by my bed. She was playing a game on the GameCube. I forgot what game it was. And I was on my laptop. We were both just doing our thing, minding our own business, not even talking. We were just hanging out. And randomly, we start hearing this knocking like that. And I didn't think much of it. I didn't say anything about it. But we heard the knocking for like a good minute, just knocking. And I remember getting to the point where I was like, is that you? What is that? Can you stop? Because it was annoying. It had been going on for a while. She drops the controller and she gets up and she's like, that's not me. And we're both looking around and she starts accusing me of doing it. And I'm telling her, no, it's not me. And as we're looking around, looking for where this knocking is coming from, it starts getting louder. And we're looking, and it gets even louder. And at this point, my mind goes directly to my closet. Again, because we had experiences with this thing before, and I'm like, I know where this is coming from, right? So I go up to the closet, and the closet is closed. And I press my ear up against it, and mind you, the thudding is still going. Once my ear comes up against it, it pops out like that, and I flinch back. And this time, the knocking is so unbelievably loud, and my friend and I are just frozen, and the shutters, like the closet door, is just going like this as you're hearing the knocking. Like, loud as hell, dude. Like, I'm not making this up. Like, it was terrifying. And we were just frozen. Like, we were just like this. Just staring at the closet as it's just going like this, and the thudding is just going. And it literally felt like the ground was shaking for a moment. That's how loud it was. And all of a sudden, it just stops. It's just like, shh, and then just stops. And my friend and I look at each other, make eye contact, and then we run downstairs to my family member on the couch at this time. And we're telling her, like, there's something up in the closet. There's something up there. We heard thudding. It was blah, blah, blah. And she was just like, go back to bed. You guys watch too many horror movies, stuff like that. So we go back upstairs and we're terrified. Okay, we're shaking. We're scared. I don't think we went back to bed after that. If we did, I don't know how we did. But after that day, my friend did not want to spend the night at my house anymore. It was weird. It was scary. I don't even know what else to say about it, to be honest. After that, things started to happen more often. And it was almost like every other day something was happening. And I remember I would go into my room by myself and I would just, get dressed or get changed for the day. And I remember I had a lip gloss and I put the lip gloss on and I set it down on the vanity and I set it up and down like standing. I don't know what made me do that, but I set it that way. And I turned around, I had my stuff laid on my bed, and I started changing. The the vanity was behind me. I put my shirt on or I put my pants on, I forgot what I put on. And then the lip gloss that I set down comes flying at me, flies past my head and lands on my bed right in front of me. And I look at it. I just finished changing and I just left and I closed the door. I would get stuff thrown at me, like just random things, like again, like my lip gloss or like a barrette or just a little stuff, and it would just be thrown across the room. And I would just see it, I'd be like, okay. And I would just walk out and close the door. And I just would not go up to my room unless I had to. It had definitely gotten to a point, wow, I totally forgot about this, but I had definitely gotten to a point where I didn't even want to be in that room anymore. I remember I would sleep on the couch in the living room because I was too afraid to sleep up there because I was just still feeling like something was watching me up in that room, and I was I was definitely sleep deprived. It was just a weird house. I don't know what else to say about it. It was a weird house. I believe around 16 was when my mother and I moved out of that house. Things were still happening when we had left, and once we left, that was the end of that. After leaving the house, uh like it definitely like left, and it left something, you know, and I feel like it added more damage to an already complex situation, and I think it knew that. And to this day, I'm still afraid to talk about it because I'm afraid that it's going to come up again, but nothing has happened since then, since I truly believe it was the house. However, I still had family living in the house, and later on, once we had moved out and somebody else took over the room, they had told me that they felt something in the room and that they would wake up in the middle of the night and feel like somebody was breathing on them. That's the last I heard of the house. They sold the house after that. I still pass by the neighborhood and I still see the house occasionally, but I don't want to go anywhere near it. I am curious as to what is going on in that house now. But new owners, I'm not going to go up to the house. I don't know these people. But yeah. If you enjoyed this video and if you want to hear more story times, let me know in the comments and I will do my best to tell them to you. If you made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.